go back and listen. I also know that many of you like to go back and listen to our chats to pick up some things that you may have missed before. So again, welcome to our May coffee chat. And again, for those of you who might be listening online to the recorded webinar, I'm your host, Tracy Sweet, the Director of Federal Programs. It's been a long couple of weeks. I don't know if you can all tell that or not, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started here. All right, so lots to discuss today, as I mentioned. Let's take a look at our agenda today. I know all of you are anxiously awaiting ESSER 1, 2, and 3 updates, so I have some of those for you today. We'll also share with you the amendments and the application updates. We have some amendments that have been approved and some are still awaiting approval from the State Department. We'll talk about reimbursement updates, and I also want to spend some time today walking you through Epicenter to show you how to check reimbursement status in Epicenter. I've done that with a couple of our schools and they have found it to be very helpful, especially since we are winding down the school year and lots of those reimbursements are flowing through. So we'll talk about that. I also want to share a couple of updates to our federal programs monitoring tool that we implemented for the first time this year. I think it's been a very successful way for us to communicate and help us to continue to get better and better. I also want to share inventory updates. Many of you may already know that Takia is no longer with our district. So until we hire a new federal programs assistant, I will be handling inventory for your federal programs. We'll also update you with Title I and Title II allocations and the application timelines. And we'll talk a little bit for our Title I schools about that end of year evaluation and those impact statements, just to remind you of some upcoming dates and remind you of how to access that template. And then I also want to share some free, yes, you heard me right, free professional development opportunities for our Title I schools. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. So we'll jump into ESSER 1 updates first for us. And I want to open my chat box here so that if you have any comments or questions or anything that you would like to ask during the chat or need to raise your hand, please do so. Just remember to mute yourselves until we get to our questioning slides, and then you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask as many questions as you'd like. All right, so for ESSER 1, our ESSER 1 amendment was approved yesterday, so yay. You were sent notifications with your new plans today. I was able to get those out to you this morning. So if you have any questions about those, please let me know. Make sure you reference those new plans that were sent to you when you are submitting for reimbursement. This would be the new plan that you need to copy and paste from if you submitted any amendments for that April deadline. And surprise, surprise, our district received an audit from the State Department regarding ESSER 1 funds. It was a desk audit, so they have not visited us. They may choose to visit us based on the information that we received, but I wanted to thank you so much. Many of you jumped in and took care of some things that we needed right away. Those inventory control logs, normally those are not due until August. And so some of you had to kind of jump in at the last minute and make sure that you had updated your inventory control logs. So thank you very much. I know that was a short turnaround. The State Department only gave us a week's notice to get the information to them. So I really do appreciate that and appreciate your patience as we submitted all of that information. We haven't heard anything back from them, but I will definitely keep you updated as we continue to move forward. All right. ESSER 2. So I know you've been anxiously awaiting the status of our ESSER 2 plans. We received conditional approval from the State Department on the 17th of this month, and a couple of days later, the 19th, I was able to send out all of your ESSER 2 approved plans. So you should have those now. Make sure you document those, keep those plans in your folders or files or wherever you keep up with that. I strongly encourage you to use that document and create yourself a tracking form. Later in our presentation, we have a school that's going to share something that they created to help them track their reimbursement status, to keep up with when they submit for reimbursement, and then when they receive approval, or if they're rejected, and then also when they receive that reimbursement from the district. So it helps to let them know when they need to do amendments, how much they have left, how much they're expecting in reimbursements, and so forth. So we'll talk a little more about that later, but I just want you to go ahead and start tracking anything that you spend with ESSER 2. Notice that we received what's called conditional approval. So we pretty much received approval on all of the categories with the exception of 13 and 14. So categories 13 and 14 may have contained activities such as, routine maintenance projects and things like that, but it also may have included additional activities that had to do with construction, adding new wings, things like that. So if you have any activities that include in those categories 13 or 14 that include design plans, you have to submit those design plans to the OSF office at the State Department and receive approval before they can give the district full approval of our ESSER 2 plan. So if you have any additional questions about that, just reach out to me and let me know. But you can go ahead and start spending funds and asking for reimbursement on all of those other categories, with the exception of 13 and 14. Now, like I said, those routine maintenance projects, we've received grant approval for, but we have not received full grant approval for any of those items that need that additional approval from OSF, such as construction. All right, so long-awaited news on ESSER 3. We do not have all the information that we need to proceed, but we do have some. So take a look at this, guys. Our district has received $27 million, over 27, almost $2.8 million that we are going to allocate out to our schools. So that's a lot of money, folks. That's more money than our district has ever received for a federal grant. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's more than all of our federal, well, I definitely know it's more than all of our federal grants combined. So that's a lot of money we're going to be planning to spend here in the next few months. The status of the allocations right now are in the hands of finance. I think Nick is on board with us. And so we have been waiting on those 135-day counts to be finalized before allocations can be calculated and sent out to schools. So we should have some information within the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for information, more information about what your actual allocations are going to be. There are two parts to the ESSER 3 application. One is called a reopening plan. We have not received a template for the reopening plan. We only know that the State Department is requiring this plan to be submitted along with the actual ESSER 3 application. What we do know about this reopening plan is that we have to make it available on our district and for you guys on your school's website for public review and comment by June 24th. And it can be a survey. You just need to make sure you keep up with all of the documentation so that you can show that you have given an opportunity for the public, for all of your stakeholders to have input into this reopening plan. It's called a return to school plan. Again, we are still awaiting the template from the State Department. Once we have that, we will send that out to you and provide you with more information. As of right now, we only know that it's one of two pieces or two parts of the ESSER 3 plan, and we know that it has to be posted by June 24th for public comment. And the auditors will be looking for that information. Okay, I see a hand raised. Can't see whose hands is raised on my screen, but please unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hey, Tracy, it's me, Mary Nell. You know, I always have a question.
Mary Nell, I see you now. Mary Nell, did you have a question?
Yes. So for the reopening plan,
you must be muted.
I shouldn't be muted.
Feel free to type your question in or unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted.
Until then, we'll keep going, Mary Nell. All right, so the second part of the application is one that you are very familiar. Oh, okay, I hear, let's see, Lee says he can hear Mary now, but I can't.
Yeah, I could hear her as well. This is Hugh.
Let's see if I can find out why. Give me 1 second here. Must be something on my end since you all can hear her. Let's try this. Okay, Mary, now speak to me.
Hello.
I can hear you now. I'm sorry.
Oh, yay.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
My question, I know that you haven't been sent a template, but is there any indication that this reopening return to school plan will be anything like the one that we already have? And I'm just asking because I know we don't have the template yet. And my board meeting and the board would have to approve the plan to go out for public consumption is like June 15th or so. And so they have on their agenda updating the plan based on all the new CDC guidelines and recommendations and things of that nature. And so I just didn't know if y'all had any indication of that at all.
That is a great question. I did dig into it a little bit today, trying to find some additional information. And I do know that John Payne at the State Department said if the school or the district already has a plan, as long as it meets the qualifications, it can be used, and that it's been placed out there for public comment, that it can also be updated. The problem is we don't know what those qualifications are yet because we haven't seen the template. So I imagine, based on what I know right now, I imagine that you can continue to use the plan you have. And then if there's anything missing based on what the new template has, then you could add those additional components once we know what those components or those requirements are. I don't know if you have placed it out there for public comment already, but you'll have to make sure you do that by the 24th. And as soon as we have that template, we will definitely let you know. I know the State Department said they already have it, then they should be sending that out very soon to us. So Michelle said she's a black sheep here. Can you check to see if there is anything different for virtual schools? Yes, that's a very good question. I imagine it's going to be very similar to the return to school plans that you already have in place. But again, until we see that template, I can't really give you any additional information, but I will send that out as soon as we have it. Any other questions about that? Okay, the ESSER 3 application is very similar as far as I know right now. I haven't seen the application, but we think it's going to be very similar to what you're used to with the ESSER 2 application. We do know that there are going to need to be some connections to the academic recovery plan. So I don't think the State Department is asking for anything additional in the application, but I think, one of the things that John Payne stressed in all of the meetings that we've had is to keep it simple. So not reinventing the wheel, not going and having to do additional work that you may have already done. So, making connections to that academic recovery plan and the goals and objectives that you've set forth in that academic recovery plan for students is going to be very important, especially since 20% of your funds must be spent toward learning loss activities such as after school, summer school, all of those things that will address how to improve achievement for those students, especially those students in those special populations, such as your special ed students, your English learners, homeless, foster care, high poverty, all of those different subgroups. I'm going to talk a little more about that later, but I want to really, really stress now to you, since you're in the planning process, to think about how you are going to measure the increase or how you've determined to meet the needs of your students who have had these great learning loss issues based on COVID. The auditors talked a little bit in one of the meetings that I attended, and they really had a great emphasis. They placed a lot of emphasis and a lot of focus on the return on investment, specifically related to those special populations. So what should you be doing now to prepare? You're already working on your needs assessments, which is good. You know, we don't have any allocations to any schools for Title I, II, or any other of our plans yet. So what can we do now? Needs assessment always comes first. So you should be collecting and analyzing that data, looking at where your strengths are, looking at where your areas of concern are, and then planning activities to help meet the needs of your school. Now, keep in mind that that includes lots of different areas. It includes your academics. It includes your teacher population and what your teachers' needs are in regards to things like professional development, perhaps certification, all of those types of things. You're also looking at parent and family engagement. That's another area of focus that you need to address when you're determining what your needs are for the school. You also need to really focus on how 20%, which I know you don't know how much that is yet, but how you're going to address that learning loss, and again, how you're going to connect it to your academic recovery plan by goal and objective. Again, I'm not sure if there's going to be maybe another column added to your application where you show where it's connected or not, but that is a possibility since they've suggested linking it to the academic recovery plan. I mentioned this already, but how the interventions will respond to those most impacted, including by subgroup. Quantitative data and qualitative data is so important in this area. I can't stress this enough. Guys, I've seen so many written needs assessments that address the whole school and they don't break it down into those subgroups. This is going to be something for your federal programs needs assessment that you're going to have to really focus on, because the auditors are going to be looking for data to show how you've addressed those particular subgroups. They're going to be looking at what the strengths are, what the areas of concern are for your school, and how you specifically plan to meet those needs using your ESSER funds. Also, think about how you want to get input from all of your stakeholders. How do you want to make sure you are giving them an opportunity to provide input, whether that looks like a survey. I know that the State Department is having an open forum this afternoon. If anyone wants to attend, you can look at the State Department's website and you can give input into their plan that they have to provide to the U.S. Department of Ed. So how are you as a school going to get that input? Also, think about how those funds will be used to safely operate schools. Mary Nell made a good point when she was talking about how they are updating their plan based on the new CDC guidance. And that is very important because I know that your reopening plan is going to have to be revisited at least every 6 months so that you can include any new guidelines that come out in regards to safely returning to school. And I already mentioned this, but think about future monitoring. There's that huge focus on the return on investment. Our Title I schools, you're already doing this. So I'm sorry if you hear dogs barking in the background. Our delivery must be here for our furniture. So I apologize for that. But that is specific to those special populations. And again, I mentioned our Title I schools are already doing something like this. This year, they did what's called a mid-year evaluation of their programs. So they looked at each one of their activities and decided at the beginning of the year how they would assess those particular activities to determine what impact it had on student achievement. They're currently working on their final end of year evaluations and their summary reports so that we can have something to provide to our stakeholders, board members, and so forth to say, here's what the return on investment was. We spent this amount of money doing this program, and here are the results. And sometimes we have really great positive results, and sometimes we have to regroup and say, you know what, this really did not have the impact that we had hoped it would have. Now we're going to have to regroup and move forward and think about what we want to do differently in the future. All right, what ESSER questions do you have? Okay, I think, let me look at our chat box. Yes, the plan is not due until August 24th. And you said, is the money going to be from August 1st onward? I think Nick answered that question from 7/1/21 to 9/30/24. So thank you, Nick, for piping in there. So yeah, you'll have until 2024, September 30th of 2024 to spend the ESSER 3 funds. Also, Michelle pointed out you just have to be careful about spending before the plan is approved. Yes, Michelle's probably heard me say that many times. So be very careful. I always caution you. I get lots of questions that say, Tracy, do you think we can go ahead and move forward with this activity even though our plan has not been approved? In a lot of cases, you have to do that. Let's take Title I, for example. Many people hire folks that are in their plan, and we may not get that final Title I approval until a couple of months after you've already hired them. In some cases, 3 or 4 months. So I always caution you, have a backup plan. I can't tell you whether it is going to be approved or not. I can, everything that I submit to the State Department, I feel like is going to be approved because I give it a thorough review before I actually send it to the State Department. However, I am not the final say-so on that. The State Department is. So I always caution you, just because the application is sitting at the State Department does not mean it is going to receive approval. We do get questioned a lot. Our schools are very good about creating innovative, out of the box, out of the universe type activities to meet the needs of their students. And that's great. So sometimes those are things our State Department has never come across before, or they may have to seek additional guidance. I can tell you from working at the State Department, they're really good at collaborating with each other. They also reach out to the U.S. Department of Ed if they're unsure of whether or not something is going to be approvable or not. But I can tell you that almost every activity that I submit to the State Department on your behalf, I feel is approvable. But the final say-so comes from the State Department. We have not decided what the deadline is going to be for our district yet. Mary now asked, is there an earlier district due date? We have not decided that yet, but we will let you know when we send out applications, just like we normally do for any of our federal programs. We'll let you know what the deadline is. We'll send you the template and give you all the information that you need to complete your application. But yes, there will be an earlier due date. We just don't know what that is yet because we have to have time to review the application. And those of you who've worked with me a lot know we usually have lots of phone conversations making sure we get those plans in that approvable format. My suggestion would be to you, make sure that you are providing lots of detail. ESSER 1, we didn't need a lot of detail. ESSER 2, they required a bit more. And I'm thinking that on ESSER 3, especially with those learning loss activities, they're going to want to know all the details, the who, what, when, where, how, and why. So the more details you provide, the less opportunity, I guess, or the fewer chances of them sending it back to us and asking questions, which takes time. So provide lots of details in your application. All right, what other questions do you have? Okay, and I'll just remind you, we hear a little bit of background noise. If you are not muted, if you don't mind, please muting yourself. Unless you have a question, then you can unmute yourself and ask. All right, so we'll continue on here. So amendments and application status. So I've been getting lots of questions about the amendments. I know some of you are anxiously awaiting some approvals because you have some items that you need to purchase right away, or you have some events that are happening. So I can tell you that our finance office is processing all of those amendments and sending them to the State Department just as quickly as they can. So all of the April amendments have been processed in the Federal Programs Office, which would be the review that has to come from me. We have already received, as of today, approval for FY20 Title I, with the exception of Felton. So Jackie, if you're on the line, I'm still waiting on yours. The FY19 ATSI and the FY20 ATSI has been approved, and ESSER1, which was surprising. We got a quick approval on that. All of the other amendments are awaiting approval. So we should have those. I think our finance office says they should have those finished up by the end of this week. So perhaps we'll hear something by next week to let you know if those have been approved. If you have a specific question, or if you have something that is awaiting approval and you're scared to move forward with it until you get that approval because you don't have that backup plan to pay for it if it doesn't get approved, touch base with me. Sometimes if we have an emergency situation like that, I can email our program manager and let her know what's happening, and she can give us kind of a pre-approval. So I'm happy to do that, but I will need you to send me an email and just let me know which activity that is. Okay, so applications. Those of you that are ATSI schools, you have that FY21 ATSI application that's out there. It's still being processed, so you should hear something about that soon. FY22 grants, Title I. So where are we with Title I allocations right now? We have had a delay, and we've had to push forward that deadline because of the 135-day counts, and also because of PIP information that we're still awaiting from the State Department. Nick has been very diligent at communicating with the State Department to get the information that he needs in order to calculate allocations. So we're hoping we'll have that by the end of this week, and we can get that information to you hopefully very soon. Again, while you're waiting, it's not just allocations, it's eligibility that we're talking about with Title I. So we don't know which schools are going to be eligible. This is a process that starts over every year, but I always encourage our current Title I schools, if you think you're going to be a Title I school next year, and I know you don't know that for sure, but I encourage you to go ahead and complete that needs assessment. You have to have a needs assessment for all your federal programs anyway. And as you're working on that needs assessment, again, you're looking at specific activities to meet those needs, and then funding opportunities come last. So once you know what your needs are, and you're thinking about activities to address those needs, then you can think about how do I, or which funding pockets can I use to fund those particular needs. So that's kind of where we are right now. Title FY22 Title II, the deadline is June 15th. My father-in-law just walked in, so you all can see him in the background. My husband's right in there. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so the FY22 Title II deadline is June 15th. We're still awaiting those Title II allocations from finance, so we haven't changed any deadlines for Title II yet. It's due a little bit later, about a month later than Title I to the State Department. All right, so ESSER 2, we already mentioned that we received conditional approval. ESSER 3, again, we're awaiting those school allocations from finance, and we should have those in a couple of weeks for you. GEARS funds, we do not have any additional information. We are awaiting allocations, and I'll pause right here. Nick, does finance have any additional information about GEARS funds since we last talked?
Yes, we just received our allocation amount, the award notification yesterday from the governor's office. So we will be sending out some information here in the next week or so to the schools.
That's great news. Thank you, Nick, for that update. That'll be wonderful. We'll be able to get that out to you. I do know, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm remembering correctly, we have so much going on right now. But the GEARS applications have to be approved by our governor's office. So that might look a little different from what we're used to, but we'll give you all the information once we have it.
That's correct. It has to be approved by the Department of Administration.
Okay. All right, so we heard some things this past week in the ESSER chats or technical assistance webinars that were provided by the State Department that kind of put up a red flag for us. Some of the things that the auditor's office are going to be asking for, we don't normally collect from you during our reimbursement process. And so I wanted to just make a note so that you're prepared for maybe an upcoming change to the cover sheet and a change in a couple of things that you are going to be submitting. We don't know yet if these changes are only for ESSER funds or if they apply to all federal programs. We were on an ESSER webinar and the auditors were talking about the documentation that they are collecting. So we are going to seek additional clarification to make sure, but they are going to be looking at job descriptions. So if, especially if you're paying anyone with ESSER 1, 2, or 3 funds, please make sure that you have a job description. And starting, I'm going to say starting now, because we're going to have to go back and ask for some of you to submit those job descriptions for some previous ESSER reimbursements. So I'll be in touch with you about that soon. But go ahead and start adding a job description to those reimbursement requests. Also, they've mentioned something called a salary agreement. So I reached out to Nick, and Nick may want to talk more about this, but he's going to create a template for this from our finance office so that we can all have something to use that is a salary agreement. I don't think your salary is usually listed in your contract, so I don't think we can use your contract. Nick, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'm still working on the template, but we'll have something to send out so we have uniformity across the district.
Thank you for taking care of that for us, Nick. All right, so we'll be sending that out. The new cover sheet just added job description and salary agreement to payroll. So if you will go ahead and start using the new template, it's already on the website for you. So you can have that. And if you have the other form and you can't find it, let me know. I'll help you locate it. So let's see, Mary, let me go back up and check our chat. All right, Gretchen said, do we know what the fund number will be for ESSER 2? And looks like Nick provided that, revenue 4977, fund 225. Mary Nell said, if we have the salary in our agreement, do we need to have them sign both? Do you mean contract?
So we don't have a contract. We have a letter of agreement. And in the letter of agreement, we state the days that, like 190 days or 235 days. And then we also set the actual, it's got the title, the days, and their salary in it. And I don't mind having them sign 2 things. I just wanted to, I definitely want to make y'all's job easier to flip through and see that it's all uniform. I know you're flipping through 1,000 schools or whatever. So I just wanted to check.
Okay, yes, and I think Nick responded to that. We would like that uniformity across the district, so it's probably just going to be something you can attach to that so that we can have it as part of your that reimbursement process. It makes our lives a lot easier, and yours too, when we have audits pop up. You know, because of the way that we've been collecting documentation, the only thing that I had to ask the schools for were those inventory control logs and also any procurement documentation that you may have had to document for procurement reasons for ESSER. So we had everything else because we, collect that documentation for reimbursement. So it makes our lives and yours a lot easier when we just have it all together and we're able to just download it and send it on. Okay, so we'll keep going. This is my favorite part. I wanted to share with you all something I've been sharing during some of our monthly meetings with individual schools. Many of you were new to Epicenter this year, and so you've learned how to submit things, but you may not be quite sure how to manipulate the program to find things that you've submitted. So what I'd like to do now is take some time to kind of go through Epicenter a little bit and show you how to locate submissions so that you can see what the status is. During this time of the year, we are bombarded with lots of reimbursement requests. So I strongly encourage you to check Epicenter often to make sure you don't have any rejections that have not been resubmitted. So I'm going to show you the steps, and then I'm actually going to walk you through those steps here in just a moment. But once I send you the PowerPoint, you'll have these steps and even these pictures to show you where to go to check those Epicenter submissions. So I am going to stop sharing here for just a moment. so that I can pull up Epicenter and share from there. Give me just a second here. Guys, I look like I'm in a cockpit with all of my different screens up here. I don't know. I have gotten to where I can't even function on my laptop. I have to have these 3 screens. Okay, so I'm going to share Epicenter. Epicenter, where are you? Here it is, screen 30. Okay. All right, so someone just let me know in the coffee chat, can you see Epicenter showing on my screen? Yes, okay, thank you. I can see it. All right, so notice I'm down to 180 requests in my queue, so we're getting there. We're getting there. But I just want to walk you through real quick. How do I find those reimbursements or any documentation that I've submitted? How do I find out what the status of it is, whether it's been approved or not? So you're going to start by going to the little file cabinet over here, which is your document center. Notice in the right-hand side, this is where you normally go to upload a submission, the little piece of paper with an arrow. To look for submissions that you've uploaded, you're just going to simply search or click on the search icon. All right, so that is going to take you to a page in the document center where you can search for submission results. And notice that you have, I like to call these little bubbles or I don't know, little bubbles at the top. I always say, look at the bubble at the top. So to search, you're going to have to sort using all of these different items. Now, your entity here is probably only going to have your school. So this is an extra step I have to take. So give me one moment. I'm just going to select one school. And Wayne agreed to let me use CAA, since we were talking about it this morning, as an example. So I'm going to click on CAA and then click apply. All right, so now that I've chosen my school, I have to go in and check the submission type that I want to view. So let's just take a look at Title I for now. I want you to notice that there are some little triangles here. I like to just say, click on that triangle to open the folder. So if you click on the triangle, that will open the folder. If you click in the box, that will select everything in the box. And you don't want to select everything in the box because you only want to see Title I for right now. So I'm going to click on that check to get rid of it, and it gets rid of all of the checks there. So now that I'm under schools, I have to scroll down until I find Title I. And again, I'm going to click on the little triangle there to open the Title I folder. And once I get to the Title I folder, I can choose what I want to view. So I'm going to select, let's just say I want to see all of my Title I submissions. So I'm going to click, and you can click on as many items as you want. I'm going to click on Title I payroll registers, purchase services and contracts, supplies and materials, and travel, because those are the 4 submissions that you can click on to submit for reimbursement. And then don't forget to scroll down and click apply. All right, so now I'm going to see all of the submissions for CAA, for Charleston Advancement Academy. There are a couple of things I want to point out. One has to do with submission status. Now, I have talked with Epicenter about this, and they choose to disagree with me, but when you click on, I'm going to go back out so you can see where that is again. See here where you have submission status, the submission status bubble? Click on that arrow to open. It says that all is selected, but notice that submissions with a status of rejected are not included when all is selected. So I always like to unclick all and then just go down and click on everything. Whoops, click on everything that is below that so that I can see everything that has been approved or is waiting approval, or especially those items that have been rejected. And then I'll click apply. So now when you scroll down, you can see items that were rejected. Okay, you can see all the items. Notice here in the right-hand corner, you have items 1 through 20 of 32. So don't forget to go to the next page to see other items that are there. Another very important bubble I wanted to bring to your attention is the time frame. So when you click here in time frame, you're going to want to look for any submissions that were in this fiscal year. Now there's a little side note I want to add to that, but I'll show you. CAA was a good example to show. So I'm going to click on the calendar here, and I'm going to go back to July 1st. Whoops, I went too far. July 1st of 2020, because that is the first day of the current fiscal year. Now, if you click on today, it's going to change both of these dates to reflect today, but we don't want to do that. I have just been clicking on the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. So I want to see everything that's been submitted during this fiscal year. Now, I want you to keep in mind that part of this fiscal year, that July, August, well, about a month and a half, July and up through August 15th, we're still processing items from the previous fiscal year. So let's say, because you don't have to, the deadline's not until July 20th, but remember the fiscal year is over on June 30th. So you might end up pulling up some things that you submitted from the previous fiscal year. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So you've got your fiscal year dates in there and you hit apply. So I'm going to scroll down here, and this is what Wayne and I did today. We were looking at his submissions for Title I, and we saw something here that was rejected. So when we opened it up, and by the way, to open it up, you simply scroll over and see how it changes it to like a gray color. You can click anywhere in that box to open it, but if you click on one of these actual submissions, it will open that particular document. So I always just kind of move over here and under the submission and click in the gray box so that it will open the submission detail for me. So when you scroll down, you can see why the document was rejected. It's incomplete. In this particular submission, it was missing time and effort documentation. So when Wayne and I were looking at this today, we said, wait a minute, is that something I can resubmit? He said, I need to get that resubmitted. So I said, hold on one second. Let's dig into it a little bit deeper. Let's actually open the documents and look at the dates to make sure that the item we're asking reimbursement for actually took place during this fiscal year and not the old fiscal year, because we still were collecting documentation for items that may have been rejected during that time. So we opened up the detail. Now, I'm not going to open that all the way because we don't like to share salary information. But when we clicked on that and opened it, and we also saw from here, the title of it, the date of the payroll that we opened happened to be for, I think it was June, may have been May and June. So that was of 2000, for this particular one was 2020. Well, this fiscal year didn't start until July 1st. So he cannot go back and resubmit. Once that fiscal year is over, which August 15th is the deadline that we have to submit, or our finance department has to submit claims to the State Department. There are no exceptions whatsoever. They will not grant us any leniency there. So I just wanted to show you that so that you could be mindful of any rejections. If you have anything that was rejected that you paid for during this fiscal year, it will need to be resubmitted. So you can click on the arrow to go back, and you can also just take a look, because you may have something that was rejected that you already resubmitted, so you can look at that and see if it's already been resubmitted. So let me also share a couple of things regarding the status and what that means. So we already talked about rejected. If it's rejected, it is not going to be reimbursed, then you would have to resubmit all of that documentation in order to be considered for reimbursement. If it has approval pending, like you see this document has approval pending, let's open that and I'll show you what that means. You can see here that on February 22nd, Wayne submitted it. On February 25th, it was reviewed by Takia in our programs office, and it's still pending approval from our finance office. So finance has not had a chance to approve it. So pending approval means it's not approved yet. It just means it's been reviewed in programs, and now it's sitting in the finance office to be reviewed and approved. If it has approved, such as this one, if you click on that submission detail, you can scroll down and you can see the dates of when it was submitted, when it was reviewed, and when it received approval, and who it received approval from. Okay, so what questions do you have for me regarding how to look up submissions in Epicenter. Let me go to our chat box and see what kind of questions we have here. All right, so Michelle wants to know if we're contracting with people, what type of documentation do we need? Nick answered that. Contracted services follow the same procedures as with other grants. We need those invoices, bank statements, and so forth. Sandy wanted to know, should we be receiving emails from you all each month with payments for grants? Not seen anything in the last few weeks. So some other folks said, yeah, I think they're wanting to know that too. Nick, I'll let you respond. He's already responded. So Nick, would you like to share that for the good of the group, folks that may be on a phone and can't see our chat box?
Yeah, so we were initially sending out emails as we were sending payments to the schools, but then we realized that we were sharing salary information, so we had to retract that email, and we've since then had to revise our tracking sheets. So if you need backup for a specific payment, just email LaPrecious and she'll provide it to you. And as we move forward, as payments are sent to the schools, we will continue to send those tracking sheets. The most important thing is we are going to be removing the description column from the tracking sheet. So if the grant is tracked in GEMS, it's going to show the detailed budget key instead of the description.
So that means it's going to be very important for you to keep your own tracking sheets. The detailed budget, excuse me, the what did you say it was called, Nick? My mind just went blank. That the code that is generated by GEMS, it's that detailed
budget key.
Budget key. Okay, not code. I forgot what that was called because I don't usually do anything with that. So that means it's going to be really important for our coordinators who are tracking the funds to make sure that you keep that column when you get your approved application from me. So GEMS automatically creates that column and assigns a number to your activity. So when Nick or LaPrecious sends out those balances, those balance sheets, you'll have to match it up based on that detailed code. Okay, or that's key.
Yeah, so there's a couple other questions coming in about why we're removing that description. And again, it goes back to we can't share salary information. So if, Jill Smith at Felton is getting paid out of Title I, we can't share that information with all the other schools. So that's why we are removing the description column. What we can do is we can email out the individual schools what their budget is with the description, and then but moving forward, as we reimburse, we're only going to send out one email to all of our schools, and that email is going to consist of everything but the description column.
Thank you, Nick. And guys, I just did that same thing with our ESSER 2 plan. When we had ESSER 1 approved, you received documentation. It was an Excel file that had all of the schools listed. So we're trying to be mindful of not sharing personal information or salaries, things like that. So just be mindful that I have already sent you a copy of your ESSER 2 plan. So make sure you hold on to that and keep that. ESSER may be a little different because ESSER does not run through GEMS. So we'll have to, that might be something we have to send out individually to you, but all of the other programs, Title I, 2, 3, 4, CSI, ATSI, those run through GEMS. So they will automatically generate a column and assign a budget detail key. So while the activity may be deleted from that row, you'll have that key that you can match up with your original application. Okay. All right, so a couple little protection steps in there. We don't want to get in trouble with our auditors. Let's see, will we get a big list of grant-related deposits without descriptions? I think Nick answered that. You may not know this, but how do we update our contacts in Epicenter? They are old. That is a good question, Michelle. And I can send out a link to the whole group. Emily Paul normally handles updates for Epicenter. So I can send you a link that goes to like a form stack survey. And if you need some of those contacts updated, Emily can take care of that for you. I'm sure at the beginning of the school year, something will be sent out for you to do that. But I'm going to make a note of that right now to contact Emily and make sure I send you all with our follow-up email. I'll send you the link to Epicenter. So if you need to do that, not the link to Epicenter, but the link to add folks to Epicenter, your contacts. Okay, good questions. Anything else? All right, I think that covers that. So let me go back. Let me minimize this and stop sharing for a moment so I can go back to our PowerPoint. And, oh, I do not want to share from the beginning. Let's try that a different way. All right, so we're going to go back here, share from current slide, and then I'm going to share with you. Oops, sorry about that. Shared the wrong screen. I have lots of screen options here, so thank you for your patience. Here we go, screen 2. Okay, so Nick, can you see my slide?
Yes, looks good.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so again, you'll have those steps to be able to follow along in the PowerPoint. I also placed in here just reminders. We walked through that timeline, and I put those dates in there for you so that you could see if you're wanting to look for this fiscal year. Also, a reminder about the submission status. You have to unclick all and then, check what you want to see. You may just want to see you're rejected. I encourage you to check all of those boxes because you may have already resubmitted, or in the case of some of our schools, they may have had leadership changes or coordinator changes in mid-year and you're not sure if it was resubmitted. So this gives you an opportunity to see. All right, so we talked a little bit about tracking sheets, and I've mentioned this before, and I still have lots of schools that email me or email finance, and they're wanting to know what their balances are. And we do understand there were some issues with some FY19 and FY20 funding. Moving forward, though, we want to make sure that you have your own process in place at the school level so that you can verify that what you have submitted is and was approved is being reimbursed to you so that we don't have all of this confusion. So Kim Taylor, are you on the line with us? Kim had shared with me, yeah, I see Kim. So Kim had shared something with me that someone in her district created to help her keep track. So Kim, are you ready to share? I can pull it up and let you talk through it. Will that work?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay, so let me pull it up and let me stop sharing again. And let me share a different screen here for you. There we go. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let Kim talk about it. And Kim, you just let me know if I need to move it or scroll over or anything like that.
So I was one of those people calling Tracy because I was getting so hung up on what was submitted and not submitted. So I ended up pulling in somebody from my group who is amazing, and she created a tracking sheet for me. And so she was able to go back and show every federal grant that we had. So she's also got one of these for IDEA as well. And so she put on there the account numbers, the descriptions, the amounts, any amendments that we had made, and then the balance, and then if we had actually submitted the reimbursement, if it had been approved, and if we had received the money. So I was getting really confused on what went through because we got so much money coming through here now. And I'm sure the other schools are like me. They probably have 10 or 15 jobs they're working on, and federal grants kind of goes to the bottom for me. But this sheet actually helped me, so she can tell me, no, you have the wrong account number on there. No, that's not the right balance on there. And so she's done a good job keeping up, and I'm hoping to push it on her going forward, and so I don't have to do it anymore. So she's way better at this than I am. But it just shows the original, any amendments we made, balances, what's been submitted, what's been approved, if we receive the money or if we're still waiting to receive the money. And so that's a summary sheet. And then she did a tab for each of the funds, and it breaks it down as well. That shows what we submitted for ESSER 1, the coronavirus relief funding, and then ESSER 2 as well. So that's just been really helpful for me.
All right, thank you so much, Kim. I wanted to have her share that when we were having our monthly meeting. She said, I have it together now. Let me tell you what we're doing. I said, oh, I'm so excited for you. So thank you for talking about that and sharing it with our schools. I see Jackie saying, I love this. So it's definitely something that you may want to think about. You can contact Kim Taylor if you'd like for her to send you a copy of maybe one without any salaries or anything like that listed, Kim. So just remember, if you send it, take any of that information out. But I think this is a great way for you guys to keep track. I keep track as well. I've shown you my tracking form for each of our grants before, and I always color code everything. So when something comes to me for programs, if I reject it, I color it red. I take notes on why it was rejected. And then if it's resubmitted, I'll color that in green if I approve it. So that on my end, I know what I'm submitting. So if I were on your end for the school level, I would add another layer to that and go back and, when your reimbursements do arrive at the school, you can go back and check and make sure that what your records show that you should be receiving reimbursement for, you actually are. It helps to eliminate any issues that, we've had some issues with some things not getting reimbursed that were submitted or back and forth, in the past. So these are just some things to think about moving forward so that we can nip any issues in the bud before they become a problem. All right. So any more questions about that? All right. Thank you again, Kim. We really appreciate your willingness to share that. So let's see. Let's go back to our PowerPoint and see if we can wrap things up today. All right, so we talked about the tracking sheets. We talked about that. So monitoring and support. I have been really, really super proud of this process this year. It was a goal of mine last year to implement a federal monitoring and support for our schools. Number one, we're required to have some type of monitoring process where we routinely monitor our schools, we do site visits and things like that. But we had, we've had some schools that don't need quite as much assistance as some other schools because, we may have schools that have new school leaders or new coordinators, or, they don't need as much support as some other schools. So this federal monitoring and support helps us to identify risk levels of schools. So basically what we do, we have this, let me get back over here for a moment. There we go. So we have a rubric. It's called our 3-tiered level support system. So based on where you fall on this tiered system, kind of determines the type of support you may receive. So again, we may have schools that need lots and lots of support and some that do not. So I wanted to share a couple of things. Some of you, I don't think we have any schools that are new to this because, except maybe our very, very brand new schools, but we've talked about this a little bit in your risk areas. So I wanted to show you a couple of areas that we've added this year. We've added this row for the 85% rule, and this only applies to Title I schools or schools that were, for example, this year I'll be monitoring you all. Or I say monitoring, I've been monitoring you all year. I will be completing a monitoring form to find out what tier you're in for support for the upcoming school year. So this past year, the year prior to the year we're in now, we were given a waiver for the 85%, but we were not given a waiver this year for the 85%. So we've had to add that to our monitoring checklist. 80, those Title I schools, you have to spend at least 85% or more of your current Title I grant in the first year. So this kind of shows you where you'll fall depending on the percentage that you've spent. 85% or more, you'll get a tier 1 for that category. If you're 80 to 84%, that puts you at a low risk. not no risk, but low risk. So you're category 2, but anything less than 84% puts you at a high risk. So that would give you a category 3 for that particular area. The other area that we've added has to do with certified staffing. As you know, our schools are required to have at least 75% of their staff staff certified, and Emily Baker has been communicating with you all about that throughout the year. We are monitored, especially in Title II. It feeds into Title I as well, but especially under Title II, we are monitored based on those percentages, and we have received findings in the past because we have some schools that don't meet that 75% requirement. So we've established a percentage for each one of the risk levels. So 75% or above, of course, that's the requirement. So you would receive no risk. It would be a tier 1. 70 to 74% would be a tier 2 low risk, and below 74% would cause you to fall into a tier 3. So keep in mind that these are averaged. Let me scroll down a little bit. So once we complete the rubric for you, then we take a look and we take the average number, and that shows us which tier you're going to fall into. So this year, if you remember, almost all of our schools fell into a tier 2 for one reason or another. A lot of it had to do with the fact that a lot of things were not submitted on time. And of course, you know, when things aren't submitted on time, it makes it very difficult for us to meet the requirements that we have to meet as a district level. So I think that was the biggest area of concern last year for most of our schools. So these are some areas that you want to move to. I have had monthly check-ins with our with our tier 2 schools this year, and that has been very, very helpful. I've really enjoyed meeting with you all on a monthly basis, and then with our tier schools, we met on a weekly basis. That's really, I think, helped to give me an opportunity to provide more one-on-one training to you. And so I feel really certain we're going to have a lot of schools moving from that tier 2 to that tier 1. I had some of you, when we released the results earlier this year, at the beginning of the year, I had emails saying, look, we're going to be a tier 1. I had some other folks after we met a couple of times saying, okay, we're going to be a tier 1, but I still want to meet with you monthly. So it's been really helpful. But I just wanted to make you aware that's going to be coming up soon. I won't process these until we get through the fiscal year and all of that and get toward the end of the year, and I have information to be able to complete the rubric for you. But I just wanted to remind you of that and let you know that we do have those 2 new categories that have been added. All right, any questions or comments about that? All right, so Courtney has a question about if a school has a new leader next year, will the school automatically go back to tier 3? No, not necessarily. It's really going to depend on, oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up for a minute. If there is a brand new school leader that has 1 year or less experience, they're going to fall into this higher risk category because they haven't, they may not have the experience or the background. And there was a lot of question last year about the school level experience in the district. So we may have had some schools who had coordinators or school leaders that were not new to federal programs, but they were new to they were very new to our district. So because they were new to the district and they were having to learn new processes and procedures and how we do things, we did put them into a tier 3 category. All of our new schools will be in a tier 3 category automatically so that we can meet weekly. We had a school this year that I did that with, and we didn't always meet weekly. Sometimes there weren't things that we really needed to talk about, or the school leader may have emailed me and said, I really don't have any updates for you this week. Are we okay to move to next week? So we make that work. But keep in mind that each of these areas, so new schools definitely, but keep in mind that each of these areas will be factored into an average. So let's say you receive a 3 in this category, but everything else is a 2, or maybe a 3 in the new staffing, but everything else is a 1. That's not going to average out to put you in a tier 3 category. So we'll take the average of that. So unless you're a new school, All right. What if we have a new school leader that has already been in the school? We may be a different animal, and that may be something we need to talk about because we may have a coordinator that's moving up into a school leader position and their experience level may be different. So that's something that we can take into account with a one-on-one basis. But keep in mind that if you're new to the district, then there are processes and procedures that you'll need to learn. So it's helpful for us to continue to have those weekly meetings or monthly meetings, depending on where you fall. Okay. Let's see. I think I answered all of your questions there. All right. Any other questions? Oh, and I wanted to mention site visits are going to start back up this coming year. I'm very excited to get back into the schools. I was unable to do any site visits in person this year due to COVID, so I'm excited to visit your schools. You know, depending on where you fall on the tiered support system will depend on what type of site visit you receive. But if you're a tier 3, we definitely will be on site visiting you this year. If you're a tier 2, that will just depend on the severity, what issues that you're having, whether we do that in person or virtual. And tier 1, I will not do a site visit unless we are audited by the State Department for something that I need to gather information from. But if you would like for me to come check out what you're doing and time permits, I'm definitely happy to do that for you. So. All right, if there are no questions about that, we'll move on to inventory. So as I mentioned before, Takia is no longer with our district as our assistant, our federal programs assistant. So we are currently in search of a new federal programs assistant, but until that happens, please contact me with any inventory questions. I just wanted to remind you of a couple of things. If you need asset tags, just email me. I have a tracking form and I'm sending that over to Miss Teresa at the district and she's ordering those. She did tell me it takes about a week to, I think she said a week to 2 weeks. It might have been 2 to 3 weeks for us to receive those asset tags, and then we have to then in turn mail them out to you. So it may be a while before you get your asset tags. So if you need some because you have inventory coming in, items that you've purchased, go ahead and send me an email and let me know so that we can go ahead and get those tags ordered. If you do send me an email, make sure I know which grant you need tags for, the fiscal year of the grant in which the items were purchased, how many tags you need, and what the starting number is. Some of you have told me it doesn't matter. But some of you have been requesting tags and they were being sent to you and you have a sequence of events or sequence of numbers that you're following. So if you have a specific number you need me to start with, please let me know because I don't have that information any longer. Also, be sure to add equipment and inventory to your logs before you distribute it. Okay, so we're going to be monitoring very closely inventory for all federal programs. We have a lot of money coming through, especially a lot of COVID money. If any of you were on the ESSER 3 webinar last week or at the roundtable meeting, you heard John Payne stress heavily that we are under a microscope. Schools are definitely under a microscope when it comes to this amount of money. So please make sure you are keeping track of every piece of inventory that comes through, especially with federal funds. You have to do that with all of your equipment and inventory, but especially with federal funds. The federal fund rule is that if it has a life expectancy of more than a year, over $100 and more than a year life expectancy, it must be on the inventory control log. So many of you ordered computers and Chromebooks and carts and other types of technology. Please make sure you're keeping track of it. You also need to make sure you're updating your equipment and inventory control control procedures. The audit that we just had for ESSER 1 focused mainly on our processes and procedures. So they want to know if we have updated our processes and procedures to reflect what's happened during COVID. So they're specifically going to be looking at that. You must have processes and procedures for checking things out. I know that a lot of you sent computers and things like that home with students for virtual learning this year, and I know some of you are having some difficulties getting that back. It is very important that you keep track of all communication that you have with families as you're trying to get these computers back. If a family does not return a computer to you, our auditors are going to ask, well, what is your process? What is your procedure if a family doesn't return that? So they're going to look at your processes and procedures. You need to have a process and procedure in place for what happens if a student checks out a computer and we don't get it back, or if it's damaged, or if it's broken. So in some cases, we have schools that have communicated to me that families have had to pay for those computers if they lose them or they're damaged. And that's in their processes and procedures. If you have a stolen or lost computer, there are very specific procedures that you have to follow. You're going to want to make sure you have documentation to show that you have made every attempt to get that computer back. And in some cases, if it doesn't come back, or the family doesn't pay for the computer, you may have to file a police report. You'll know if you mark anything on that reconciliation as lost or stolen, the auditors are going to look for a police report to see if you filed a police report, especially if it was stolen. So please be diligent. Please make sure you're making every effort and you're keeping documentation. Make sure you have those processes and procedures in place. And if you don't, strongly encourage you to work on that as you're moving into the new year. They're going to want to see check-in, check-out procedures. They're going to want to see the actual check-in and check-out logs to show where it was checked out to a student, or even checked out to a teacher. Maybe you're using some of yours iPad carts and you're checking them out to actual teachers at the beginning of the year. So they're going to want to know that you can put your hand on every single item. And if they come to visit, this is one of the big areas that schools all across our state struggle with. Our auditors will point to something on that list, and they'll want to make sure you can show it to them very quickly. If it's if you've got it checked out to a student, you have to have that information, which student has it. They may actually go to that student, because now that school's back in person, to see that they have it. So make sure you have all of that documentation. They will look for that. A question was asked, what happens if we can't get the money back? We've made every effort. If you've made every effort and you have those processes and procedures in place, you filed a police report, you don't normally have to pay that money back. But if the district sees that there are no processes and procedures, there's no checkout forms, you don't even know which student has that computer, then you would end up having to pay that funding back. And I've seen that happen quite a bit when I was at the State Department. We had a lot of districts and schools that ended up having to pay money back because they could not locate items that were on their list. One other thing I caution you with, I've seen this at the State Department too. If our auditors see there are issues, they may go pull all of your expenditure reports and match up your expenditure reports with what's on your log. So don't leave anything out. We've seen it happen. People will leave things out. I haven't seen it in our district, but I've seen it in other places where folks will leave something off intentionally because someone left the district, they took the computer with them, or whatever the case may be. And we do not want any issues like that. I've told y'all many times, I love Clemson. My Clemson diploma is hanging on my wall right there. But I don't look good in orange. This body is not made for an orange jumpsuit. So we're not going to jail for anybody. Make sure you keep up with it. All right, so let me show you this next slide. I have seen quite a few inventory control logs that might be missing one or two columns. You need to make sure that it has every column. This is a sample from the one I recently sent out for ESSER, and I added that federal, I always forget what FAN stands for. It's federal, I can't remember now, but it's that identification number that comes on our GAN. So if you need those, let me know. I think those were sent out to you a couple months ago for the grants that we currently have out in force right now that you're still requesting reimbursements on. So if you need any of those, just let me know and I'll be happy to resend that out to you. I did put it on there for ESSER, and when I have time, I'll go in and add one for all of our grants and just list it there for you. It's a little different each year. Notice this is ESSER is an FY20. The FAN number stays the same except for the last two numbers. So I imagine for ESSER 2, it's going to be this same, or FAN number, it's going to be the same number but have a 20 at the end of it. So it's not the fiscal year, it's the year that's the beginning of that fiscal year, that's that last number. All right, any questions about that? Okay, we have a couple of questions. Are there different tags for ESSER grants? Yes, so each item has to be labeled, and we actually do. I think Nick said same tags for all inventory, doesn't matter which federal program, but actually we do have to put the inventory for that federal program. So we do have separate tags for ESSER. And again, if you want to do this at your school, because it takes a while to get them from our district, that's fine. You're welcome to create your own. But in the past, we have supplied for those schools that have asked for them. We're happy to continue to do that for you. It has like a little barcode, but I do need to know which grant so that we can provide you with the specific grant that the item was purchased with. So if it was purchased with ESSER, we need to say that it was purchased with ESSER funds, Title I, so forth. Do they get a federal sticker and regular sticker? So that is a good question. I'm not sure what you mean by regular sticker. Your school may have its own identification sticker and then a separate federal sticker. And yes, that's fine. I was in a school before where we had one that identified which school it came from, and then one that identified that it was purchased with federal funds. And one of the reasons for that is to make sure we're keeping up with it. And two, if a school were to close, those items that are purchased with federal funds can be distributed to other schools that may also receive those same federal funds. So like if a Title I school closes, the items, the equipment there can be transferred to other Title I schools. So we want to make sure we keep up with it and can put our hands on it.
Hey, Trey.
Yes.
So we stickers for ESSER?
Yes, ESSER is federal funds, so you would need stickers for ESSER. Also, don't forget about CRF. Those funds were distributed directly to the schools, and you're submitting reimbursement type documentation, even though it's not a reimbursement, you're submitting the documentation like you would. So it's a federal program too. So yes, CRF, ESSER, all of those are going to need federal stickers.
You're not talking about the regular federal stickers we already have. You're talking about we need to get a special sticker for just ESSER and a special sticker for CRF.
And I'm not sure what you mean by the stickers that you already have. I'm not sure what you have, but yes, they would have to be labeled that they were purchased with ESSER funds.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or they were purchased with CRF funds.
Okay.
And if you, like I said, if you need those, just let me know, and we can get some ordered for you. Miss Teresa's in the process of ordering those now. Okay. All right, we're coming kind of toward the end of our presentation today. Just wanted to add these slides in here just to kind of keep you apprised of the items that are coming up that are due. We did have the May 14th due for our Title I planning meeting documentation. Some of you said, you don't have it yet, that you're going to turn it in when you turn in your plan, and that's fine. June 4th is now the deadline for preliminary application, but again, that may change because that's next Friday and we don't have the allocations yet, so we may have to adjust that again. We do have a deadline of July 1st to submit our preliminary application to the State Department, so we are going to be pushing it if we move that forward any more. So not to put any pressure on you, Nick, but keep putting that pressure on the State Department to get us that information because we're going to run out of time. Schools, no worries. You're just going to have to adjust your plan once you get your allocation. So we'll be fine. We're good. Title I schools, your impact statements are due at the end of, the beginning of July. And then remember, we moved the federal equipment and inventory control logs to August 15th, and we will be collecting those for all federal programs. Title II, those dates have not changed. We're sticking with June 15th for those Title II applications and needs assessments and your planning meeting documentation. I can't stress this enough. Please, please, please remember to submit your invitation to participate in the planning meeting, agenda, sign-in sheets, PowerPoints or handouts, and the one everybody always forgets, your minutes from the meeting, because our auditors are going to look at your agenda. They're going to want to make sure, especially if you're a Title I school, they're going to look to see if you have on there revision of parent and family engagement policy, revision of your homeschool compact. They're going to want to make sure that they see that there was a discussion about that and what the comments were in those minutes. So we've shared over the last couple of months, I've shared agendas with you, I've shared samples with you. So please make sure you are submitting that documentation, because I don't think we have an audit coming up, but there's been they've been stressing audits lately, so we always want to be prepared. This slide has to do with our, of course, Title I and Title II timelines. I just shared those with you, but this one adds the dates that they're due to the State Department. So it's just there for your records as you're working. And then the templates are here. Remember that you're going to use your most recent version of your Title I plan to make revisions, and the same thing with Title II. This was a slide that was in last month's coffee chat, so I just wanted to keep it there so that you had easy access to those items if you need them. And that was, again, this tells you what you're supposed to do and how you complete it. Remember to add those in the action column. If there's no change and the activity is staying exactly the way it is down to the penny, then you would type in no change. If you're going to delete it, don't actually delete it, because Jim still has it in the system. I have to go in and physically delete it, but you have to tell me to delete it. So type in the word delete and highlight it in red to let me know I'm going to delete that. And if it's a new activity, you can type new. And I forgot well, I don't have one here that says update, but if you have an activity that you are just making a few changes to, just type in the word update, and that'll let me know I need to go into that activity in GEMS and make a few changes to it. So if you have specific questions about that, let me know. Other due dates. I left this here because I have not seen any notices to parents regarding teacher certification status in Epicenter. I don't think I have, unless there's something in there in my queue, those 200, whatever it was that was in my queue right now. So if you have not uploaded those in Epicenter and you're a Title I school, please make sure you do that. That is very, very important, that we have copies on file to show that you sent that letter home. If you have a teacher in one of your core content classes that is not certified, even if they fall within that 25% allowable, you have to send home a letter letting those parents know that their child is going to be taught for 4 or more consecutive weeks by a teacher who is not certified for the subject in which they are currently teaching. So make sure you upload those. Continue to submit those reimbursements. It's a lot easier to keep up with if you do it on the 20th of each month for the previous month, and then you're not scrambling at the end to try to get that in. It also helps us to meet deadlines that we have to meet with the State Department, because we're required to submit quarterly. So please continue to submit those, get everything in. It's already the end of May. July 20th, which is that deadline for you to submit, will be here before you know it. Just that was a reminder for me to say don't leave any money on the table. So make sure you are spending. You have until September 30th for those FY19 and FY20 grants, but keep in mind you only have until July 20th to submit reimbursement requests for anything submitted within this fiscal year, which runs July 1st of 2020 to June 30th of 2021. I also want to stress to you to continue to check your emails and check Epicenter for anything that may have been rejected. It's that time of the year where you're going to see rejections say things like, please submit within the next 48 hours, or please submit within the next 24 hours, depending on what day it is, because we just don't want you to get in a situation where you don't get something submitted and reimbursed and then you lose that opportunity, and then end up having to do amendments or something, because there are no more opportunities to do amendments for FY19 and 20. So spend, 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 claim, claim, claim. All right, last couple of things. I just wanted to remind our Title I schools that we have some free professional development opportunities for you this summer. So I want you to mark your calendars. I am very excited that we're going to have Dr. Anne Marie Taylor providing us with some tools that we need to examine school data and school-wide information to make data-driven decisions. So we're very excited to have her. She's going to create a Google Classroom and have all of her recorded sessions available. But we would love for you to register to attend online, and I have the links there for you. I've also sent it out to you in operator's notes and in our newsletter. So you don't want to miss that. Anne Marie is a really fun presenter, so you should enjoy that and be able to get some really great information on how you can use your data. We also have 2 other opportunities that I'm so super excited about. So mark your calendars for July 20th through the 21st. This is a free summer 2021 Title I conference. It's going to be offered both in person and virtually. And so we'll have more details coming about how you can sign up to attend virtually or to attend in person. It's going to be in Rock Hill. So mark your calendars for that date. Very excited about this 2-day conference that's going to be offered to our Title I schools. And then school leaders, coordinators, are you looking for some of that beginning of the year professional development? I am most excited about the opportunity to provide a professional development by Dr. Ruby Payne. So I don't know if you know who she is, but I think she's fabulous. I've seen her many times. I've had pictures made with her. She has a new book out called Emotional Poverty. And I'm just really excited. If you attend this particular online professional development, you also get a free copy of her newest book. Now, this new book came out right before COVID hit, but reviewers are saying that it's just amazing that the connection and the needs that students now have socially, emotionally, related to COVID and how she addresses those in her new book. So we are very fortunate to have her coming to present to our Title I schools this year. So please mark your calendars and be on the lookout for more information regarding signups and links to the presentations. All right, I'm not going to take time because we only have about 2 minutes left, but these are just some things that I left here for you from last month's presentation about the new Title I eligibility. We talked about that last week, and we'll have more information coming about that. Title I schools, I left the link there if you still need to access the Title I impact statement template for the end of the year. And remember, it has one more section on it for you to create that summary of results. Also wanted to just let you guys know that we have 2 positions that are currently open in the programs office. We have a COVID impact coordinator. So if you know of anyone who may be interested, please share. This is a Columbia-based job where the person will report to Columbia every day. And I think right now our Columbia-based employees are reporting 4 days a week and have 1 day virtual. So if you know of anybody who might be interested, please let them know. They will be working very closely with me to manage all of our COVID funding. And then we also have a federal programs assistant position open that we've been currently interviewing for. So if you know of anyone who might be interested in that, please send them our way. And of course, your resources are listed there. Questions, comments. Let's see. Courtney wants me to update the Title II submission. So Courtney, the Title II submission, you have one that's going to be for your needs assessment and your application. And then there's a second submission that is simply for your planning documents. Oh, and it says that there are no attached templates. I'll have to look at that and see. Maybe when it transferred over to this year, maybe the templates didn't come with it, but I'll definitely look into that for you and make sure we have it there. But you'll also have them in the PowerPoint when I send that out to you. Okay. All right. Any other question? You don't have a second task for the planning documents? All right, Courtney, let me write this down and I will contact you and make sure you have a link for that, okay? I'll make sure I get that to you to make sure you have access to that, okay? All right, you are so welcome. Okay, anybody else have any questions, comments, celebrations to share? Okay, Jesse, I'll look into that. I'm not sure what's going on with that planning document and why it's not showing up on your task, but I'll check into it and see what we're doing. All right, guys, well, it is 2:30, so I will let you all go and have a great afternoon. If you have any questions or just want to celebrate something that's happening in your school, definitely let me know. I'm always looking for good news that we can share. Hope you all have a great afternoon. Thank you for joining us today.